Yeah, well, you see, I don't want them here. And I don't want them here. Who don't we want here? We don't want, basically, from here on in, I'm making a decree that anybody, actually, who doesn't have kids or want to have kids or have kids, they're not welcome to be born here again. Because the universe is about life and about more life. And I'm changing things up. This is my planet. I'm the sun. The sun is me. I'm the incarnator of the sun. Our sun, yes. And that means gay people. That means faggots and poofters and homosexuals, however you want to call them. It's just a word. Relax. If you think I'm saying something derogative if I say faggot or poofter, that's your perspective. That's what you are thinking. You are judging me on what you were thinking I'm using the word as, and it's just a way to classify somebody, that's all. If it's used with intent, ill intent, well, that goes down as probably not something you want to use, because if it hurts somebody else, that's not fair, is it? But I assure you, I'm not meaning it in a derogative sense. So that goes for lesbos, carpet lickers, lesbians, all the LGBTQIAs, and any human, in fact, who doesn't want to have kids or doesn't have kids. There's a rule, because my buddy Nino said to me one time, Nino, who's passed away, that's another story. You can check that out in my videos. There's the Nino story there somewhere. It's a good one. It's a perfect murder, basically. I committed the perfect murder. I hope I finished. I'll have to look at that, because I hope I finished actually explaining everything properly. I'll have to look at that again. But yeah, it's because he tried to kill me with a headbutt. Then he died. Anyway, it was the perfect murder. You'll just have to check it out. But I must check it too myself. Yeah, and so, if you're not going to have kids, because he said to me one time, Warwick, I think you have to have kids to come back here. Right? Because he was a tripper like me. He had heaps of ideas about stuff that were just from the heart, and I think he was my protector, my number two. If I needed a number two, I reckon I'd make it Nino, which I would make it Nino, not his brother Nicky. Nicky's number two now. I've got to give it to Nino, because, yeah, even though he tried to kill me with a headbutt, there's a story in it, which makes it the perfect murder. Yeah, and so he said that to me, and so I've been thinking, well, yeah, then, because I've been going on this thing that everything's true. You just got to find out the way that it is true. So he said what he said is true. Then what I've been going through lately is true. There's another story in about 2020. Was before COVID, I think. Maybe 2019. I just woke up one day, jumped out of bed, just saying to myself, it's true, it's true. It's all true, it's true. For about half an hour, I was buzzing. I was running around the house. It's true. And what was true was everything that I've ever thought before. Something was telling me that it's true. It was like in my sleep I went somewhere, and then they schooled me up on some stuff, which we're not allowed to remember. It's part of our not remembering past lives, and I think when we sleep we go somewhere, and because we're not here, it's just black. I think we're somewhere else, doing something else. And probably when we're awake here, we're asleep there or something. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so he said that to me, so I just thought, well, it's true, and then I'm making it a law that if you don't have kids, you're not welcome back here. And if you do get back here, then it's a breach of, it's just a, yeah, like, because everyone's supposed to have kids. The universe wants more life. God, Source, wants more iterations of itself. It wants as many different things as it can manifest as possible. So we need to look at that dynamic, and we need to say, hey, hang on a minute, we're going to run by that dynamic, because the universe is our progenitor. If it wasn't for the universe, we wouldn't exist as people. Our spirits or souls would, our long frequency would, but yeah, we wouldn't exist. What was I saying? And it it just wants more life, more copies of itself, more iterations, more fractals, because that's what essentially we are. We're just fractals off a thing. It's just, it doesn't look like we're fractals, but more. And so I say that we should, like, if there's a system of which souls incarnate, and I'll give you an example. I think because of not peer pressure, but because general consensus towards gays and homosexuals, but just that type, general consensus is becoming more open to the idea. We've got gay marriage, and there's all this woke LGBTQ rainbow bullshit. They're putting it in schools. They're letting children in America, I think especially, disfigure their bodies if they think they're the opposite sex, if they're a girl, but they think they're a boy, and they cut their breasts off, and some of them regret it. It should be illegal if you're under 18, because it just should be illegal. It's disgusting. It's part of the evil. Because it's part of the evil, because it's geared towards having less children, because gays and homosexuals, they have less children. And that's just a matter of the fact. And I'd say that because it's become more lenient, like society has towards them, more of them are being born, right? And but think about it, if everyone was born gay or homosexual, just think about it in this way. I'm all for letting you be who you are, but too, if there's a system of who gets incarnated here, like what sperm, it must be that the sperms, because you're born gay, right? Some become later, but you're essentially born gay or homosexual or whatever, that if you're that way inclined for the opposite sex, you're born that way. And so does that mean that the sperms, the gay ones, they're the ones that have been winning? It's like they've got an extra kick in their step, because they're like, yeah, we're accepted, come on, let's go, I can swim way faster and get to the egg first. Like, is that what's going on? And that's why there's more of them. That could be the system. Or is there an actual system that, and I think the Catholic Church has to do with what souls get incarnated on earth, well, to do with Catholics anyway, ones that are going to follow that. It's just like, when I say the Catholic Church, it's like the spiritual form of the Catholic Church has that power. And that's why essentially they're evil, and they've let too many black hats, they've let too many dark individuals in, or whoever's controlling it has let too many in, right? Because if there's a system that lets it in, or is it random? Is it just random, the souls that get incarnated on earth? Like, what is it? There's got to be a system, I reckon. And so, is there more of them, homosexuals and gays, being born now? And I want to say that if you don't want to have kids, then you shouldn't be allowed to come here. And think about it, that's what I was going to say. If everybody was gay or homosexual, or just didn't want to have kids, our culture wouldn't survive. So it just wouldn't, the human race wouldn't continue, because there wouldn't be enough children. You know, the population would decrease until it just turns into nothing, because you'd have just gay people left, and then, you know, there's 100 people left. They're all gay, and there's no more kids happening. You know? Yeah, and then what? They have to force themselves to have sex and have babies, and then they just breed more gay and lesbian ones. But anyway, this is just this, and you can think whatever you like. You can think I'm an asshole or I'm being like not racist, but being normalist the way I see it is just looking and thinking about it in a common sense sort of thing. So yeah, I hope because of if I have anything to do with the rules that govern this earth, I like to think that less people who don't want to have children, I think people who don't want to have children, they just shouldn't be born. They shouldn't be able to incarnate. And that's just what I think. And that covers the gays and lesbians. So it's not, I'm not just targeting them. I'm not being a prick about it, like, because I'm all for let you be who you are. If you exist, look, if you exist, you're housed, you exist within the house of God. So you deserve, this is what I truly think. So you can't, I've covered all my bases. And it's not that I need to cover them. This is how I think. And so what was I saying? Yeah, because I'm covering all people who don't want to have children. You know, should they really be allowed to be here? Because we want more and more. And the more we get to, we'll find ways to look after the earth. We're not going to let that just disappear. We'll come up with new technologies because we're part of the earth. We're part of nature. And yes, we can follow it, and we will evolve with it so that the earth is protected enough. And that, mark my words, is the truth. Because its energetical changes affect us. It's probably why maybe like in Atlantis, the people had different cultures. They had different technologies. It would have been all because of, as well, of the state or the age of the earth, you know, where it was at. It's like accents. Why do accents appear? You've got accents, and I'm sure it's got to do with where you are on the planet. There's an energy. The wind is different. The water's different. The air, the height, the level, high elevation that you're at is different. The temperature, if I didn't say that already. And so one of the things that it affects is what we look like, and also it affects, which we can't notice. But one thing we can say is, why do we have different accents? Why exactly do we have different accents? And I'm sure it's got to do with where we are. It's the only thing that I can think of that makes any sense. It's got to do with where you are on the planet, which brings out the accent and then therefore language. But then that has to do with your DNA. I hear that language is within our DNA. So DNA must act differently in different parts of the planet because there's different energies emanating. That's what makes each part of the planet different. You know, no two parts of the planet are the same. And so what else was I going to say? Which that leads me into language. How is it that language comes about? Because what happens is people stay in one group. Let's say it started with one group, okay? This is the dynamic for how language, the evolution of language, I call it, the evolution of language. Now, let's say there was one group of people and that was all that was on the earth, and one culture, and they were located in one area, such as, say, as big as I don't know, they were just on 20 square kilometers, right? And within that culture, you would have some of them who would say to themselves, I've had enough of being here. I'm going to go to another part. or they get kicked out and must go to another part. One of those two things happen. So they get their stuff, and because they've decided to leave for whatever reason, they've decided to leave, or they've been kicked out. Now they go to another part, say 400 kilometers away. They walk there, and they get to 400 kilometers away. Now, what's going to happen is over time they're going to start sounding. They'll still speak the language that they had when they were in the group, when they get to their new place. But over time, they're going to start sounding differently. They're going to start sounding different to their other counterparts. They're the original group. Now, that original group will evolve their sound as well. So the two are in two different places. The light is different. The stars are different. Like only by slightly, but you're in a different perspective. You're 400 kilometers away. The water's different. The temperature, everything's different. The energy of the earth is different. So then you start sounding different, and then an accent appears. It goes on X amount of years, however amount of years, and the two great groups stay separate, and however many years it takes for it to go. So then they've got a different accent. Then after a while, they start thinking of new ways to say things, and they start putting in different words and different things into their language. And then they get a dialect, right? They have a dialect. So their writing, for instance, might stay the same, but they get a different sound to what they are saying. What they are saying is the same, but the sound of what they are saying, they've changed it. And there you have a different, because wait a second, dialect is a different sound. Dialect being a different sound. And then after the dialect, after they've been away for longer, the language totally diverts and has turned into another language. So the two are speaking a totally different thing. Both have evolved their language. Both of them, their language, their writing and their speaking. Well, let's just say the writing stays the same and the speaking changes. But we don't know. Doesn't really matter, I think. And then they've moved, and now they're speaking a different language, all because they moved to a different part of the planet. It started with the sound of what they were saying changed. And then after some more time, words evolved to be spoken differently for the same meanings. And then that is the evolution of language. That is how language comes about. And because nothing is static, nothing stays the same forever. Our language is always evolving. But you see, I think there's a problem now as well with AI to do with how they show us how to write. Now they're showing you sentences or 3 or 4 words that could be written differently. But I found many things in there that I could write it in my way and still it would pass. My way might not technically be correct if you looked at an Oxford dictionary or whoever looks at grammar structure and whatever, and where was I? Yeah, and so what they're doing is they're defining the language to a degree. They're defining the language. They're telling you how it should be written, and they're wanting you to choose that. And so there's no room for evolution of language in that way. It's like we come up with slang as well. Slang is, there's no room for new phrases or terms in a sense, or new ways to write things. Because essentially it don't matter. Like I said, it don't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. Technically, I shouldn't say it don't matter, but it don't matter what or how you say it to somebody, as long as they understand you. As long as you're understood, it doesn't matter how you speak to each other. But of course, it's going to have to be basically the same to get understanding. But because language needs the room to still be evolving. I just think there's a block if we continue to have AI tell us how to write, parts of sentences or whatnot. You might not think this is much, but if you think about it, I'm right. I know I'm right. Just the fact I've thought it means that I basically am right. It sounds like ego, but after a while you get to know me, you'll see that there's never really when you can prove me wrong in just about anything. It's like my father, the Black Prince. I never saw him, like, he didn't have any friends really, but he could charm a room very easily. He could have people listening to him and having them laugh and whatever, because he didn't need anybody. He was totally his own man. And I never saw him in an argument or with my mum or talking with my mum, which I never remember them doing, just talking. But I never remember seeing him in a situation where he was wrong, except for when I have spoken to him. Like, one I can think of is he wanted to transport water from Kakadu National Park or something all the way down south, down through Queensland to wherever there were droughts. He wanted to, divert natural water sources through a fucking pipe. And I've got so many reasons why that's just wrong, because it needs to be in nature, because it has memory, and it has memory, and it energy travels through water when it's in positive environments. Look up Ezimoto, Masuro Ezimoto, I think his name is, and he found out the sacred geometry within water. So water needs to go around curves and over rocks and be listening to birds, and it has more of an energetical structure, I believe. Just look it up on YouTube. It's difficult to find because it's difficult to find, but this guy, he was sort of a pseudoscientist, they call him on Wikipedia, but I don't know exactly what he was, but that doesn't matter. You don't need to be a scientist to be a scientist, everybody. You don't need to have invented something to be an inventor. So that's about all I've got here to say, I think. I think this is over and out. This point in time, I'm just going to channel. Here is what my mind is saying. Nothing much. See, I am thinking the word first, then saying it. So, thank you very much. I am going to go now. Hope you have a good day. Signing out 2322. Goodbye, everybody.